Hi, open eye hung. Last time you said again that I should realize that I am safe and in peace now, and only my brain causes a problem involving my past and future. I do not understand why you think that I'm something who have to be reminded to that. I know that I am safe, at least as much as anything can be safe in this life. But in every moment of this miserable life we live, there are zillions of people who are not safe. I'm not talking about them, about reality. Stop bullshitting me, open eye hun. Stop with your bullshit. Just stop. Just stop. You're trying to put your unease on me. You're trying to drag others down with you. You're not really asking a question. You just want to bring others into a mental hell with you. Produce them now, all these people suffering in the world. Produce them now in your current experience and see it's in your imagination. I'm not saying that as humanity we don't try our best to live as peaceful and loving as we can, but to be peaceful and loving on the character level, you have to realize what's true and what's not. And you're stuck in this victim story, living out the traumas of all these other apparent people that are in hell that you've imagined. This is your imagination. See through it. See it's bullshit. See your mind is producing hell. That's got nothing to do with compassion, what you're telling me. What you're doing is you're trying to infect others with your mental distress. That's not to do with compassion. Compassion, the greatest compassion you can do for anyone in this planet is to be yourself, which is love. And this will have such a huge impact on the rest of humanity. It has such a huge impact. You're not leaving footprints everywhere. When I walk down the street, because I'm not suffering, I can get moody and grumpy and all these things. I'm still human. But most of the time, my internal attitude is joyfulness and love. So when I'm walking down the street, when I'm interacting with people, it comes from that interaction, and people can feel that. It's so important. This is how you change the world. But you're not caring about changing the world. You do not care about other people's suffering. You want to bring everybody else into your suffering. See that. Feel that. Feel it. See it. Why are you trying to convince me of all these million people suffering? Why are you even thinking about it? What you should be thinking about, what you should be dealing with, is your internal state that feels like it's in hell, so it goes quickly to other people. What about all the other million people? Rather than staying with this discomfort that you feel, the suffering that you feel, you're just going to other people. That is not compassion. That has nothing to do with love or caring about society. When I was younger, I worked in the West Bank, which I've told many times. So for those people that don't know what the West Bank is, which I'm sure there's some people, the West Bank is what they now call Palestine. So you know that Palestine used to be where Israel was, and then it's now Israel and then West Bank and Gaza. And there is there's been a lot of conflict there over the last 40 years. And in about 2002, I went and worked in the West Bank with a Buddhist organization. And I'd already seen that peace couldn't be achieved by forcing peace, because I was already an animal activist, so I knew what activists were like. So I went with this Buddhist group, knowing that you had to change your mind as well as change the situation. And when I went there, and I worked with these other peace activists, I'd never met such hateful people as the peace activists. They were so angry. They wanted to constantly be at war. They had no internal peace. They weren't fighting for peace. They were fighting. They were fighting. They just wanted to be on the good side of peace, to fight someone and feel disjustice, and feel the craziness of war. They wanted to be at war. They were not interested in peace. I can tell you a situation of a time where I struggled. I was very pretty when I was younger, and no matter how much I covered myself up and tried to make myself look ugly, the guys in the West Bank found me very attractive, and it was difficult for me to be alone in the West Bank without the Palestinian men being inappropriate, because they also had the idea that white girls would just openly have sex with anyone. So it was very uncomfortable being there, because it was very difficult for being a white, pretty, young 22-year-old in that situation. And so one time I was explaining this to the group, that I couldn't be put in this particular place for this protest because there was too many Palestinian men around me, and I would just have hands and hands and hands all over my body. And they kicked off. They went mental at me for suggesting that Palestinian men would behave that way, and that I was falling into stereotypes. And this was after a month of being there, of having many hands over my body and being put in many uncomfortable situations that the organisation which brought me over there hadn't thought about for a young white woman. And they were just really, really rude to me and hateful to me. It was like suddenly I was against their cause, and it was like a really scary situation to suddenly have the organisation you're working with against you, and saying that you're giving Palestinian men a bad, or West Bank men a bad name, or blah 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 blah. And the hate that came out of them towards me was just crazy. They weren't fighting for peace and love and compassion. It was all about hate. Because really what was happening inside of them is, when they were younger, in some situation they felt an injustice, and they were just refighting that injustice again and again and again. It doesn't mean that you can't be a political activist without that. You can be, but there's a difference of being a political activist from love, whereas fighting for peace, that's a very different thing. And to be a political activist that comes from love, there has to be that awakening. Without it, you're just fighting your old issues, you're fighting your parents, you're fighting your education system, you're fighting society. I was, when I was younger, for the animals. I was fighting against society and fighting against the education system. So don't give me all this bullshit about, what about all these people suffering, as if you care. Open eye hun, you care about yourself. As soon as you realize that all your suffering is about yourself and self-centered, and that you want to infect other people with that to validate your own suffering, then you'll begin to address the suffering that's inside of you and the pain that's inside of you, and get over your own arrogance. And what I'm saying to you, even though I'm swearing at you, comes from love. I'm trying to point out to you the illusions. And I'm very patient with you, Open Eye Han. Like, I don't know many people would tolerate. I mean, just from that first speech, what you're trying to do is you're trying to puke your stuff onto me. I don't take an ounce of it. You got to deal with it. There it is, Open Eye Han. You feel this pain inside of your body. You feel injustice. You feel like you've been abandoned by life. You feel like life has done harsh things to you. So forget about all these other million people. You're only talking about yourself. When you realize that, then you'll begin to deal with the feeling of it. Don't start with me and many others. Get over the others. You don't give a shit about the others. If you did go and donate your life and work in one of these disaster situations, when you've given me a certificate that you've worked there for 2 years, then I'll take on board others. Until then, shut up about others. You don't care about others. You're using others to validate your own suffering because you're too afraid to stand there in your own suffering. So you have to bring others into it. Forget about others. Stand in it. Why do you not know what I care about? I know because I deconstructed myself, and I know from all my own bullshit. I was a peace activist. I was an animal activist. I turned vegan when I was 10 years old, a vegetarian when I was 8 years old. So I know from my own bullshit that all this other stuff, I still think that there is true compassion that chooses not to eat meat or to treat other people badly. So there is like a true compassion. But that's beside the point. I know a lot of my issues and political activism was because of my own mental distress. Like with the meat industry, it was like I used to go to the supermarkets and see all these dead animals, and it reminded me of being in society, of everyone walking around and pretending that they're not going to die, pretending that things are perfect when they're not. It's like the hidden, it was like the perfect representation of what grossed me out about society. And then I walked into the supermarket and there's everybody, it was like a horror film. There's everyone acting normally with all these dead bodies around and blood and gauze, and they're all like, ooh, a nice piece of lamb chop. And really it was because of my own suffering that grew up in a society where you weren't allowed to emotionally express yourself. You weren't allowed to cry in public or be sad or happy or angry. You had to just be this dead zombie. And so for me, it represented the same thing. And so me fighting for the animals was trying to fight against that deadness that I felt in society. I wasn't really fighting for the animals. I was when I came from a place of love, but most of it was me trying to rebel against my parents and the society I grew up in. And me being grossed out about what I saw in my society, and then I projected that onto animals, and I was fighting to make people be aware of all the problems with the animals. So the reason that I know what you think is because I deconstructed myself, and although I would love to say that you're very special and unique, we're all kind of the same. The illusion is the same. We are special and unique, everybody is special and unique, but also we're also very similar. We're not like, we all, the way the illusion of self works in the same way. Believe me, I do not want your compassion, I want God's compassion, if there is one. You most probably just want my attention right now, in this moment. You gotta all stop bullshitting yourself. Get real. Get real. I was such a bullshitter. I remember when my teacher used to point out stuff, we'd be walking through the forest and he'd be like, "You're angry," and I'd be walking along the forest and there would be anger in my body, but I wouldn't even be conscious of it, and I was trying to be peaceful and kind, and then I would be like, "I'm not angry," and then you are angry, blah, 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 and you keep on and on and on, and you know, it'd go on for half an hour, me saying I'm not angry, and he would be like giving examples and da 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 da, and then suddenly I'd get so annoyed by him keep saying I'm angry, I'd have an anger tantrum, and then I'd be like, "Oh yeah, I'm angry." Like you just got to get real with yourself. You don't want to feel what's happening in your body because you've been taught by society not to. You've been taught to only listen to the mind and only listen to what you're thinking, and then you believe you can control it. But your body feels, and it's totally uncontrollable. And it's there feeling and buzzing and alive, and there's nothing wrong with what you feel because none of it's yours. But you keep your attention up here because you're petrified of the feelings. No, I'm not angry, I'm a very nice person, see? No, I'm not angry, I'm a very nice person, see? And then it comes out in passive aggressive or bitchiness. Asking rude questions, saying rude things.